The statements contained in this presentation have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The products discussed are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Dr. Ari Imperial.
Be the best you can, I'm high, be the man. Give it you all, and always stand tall.
Doctor of Family Medicine.
I'm sure you can too. He's legend, no one can but be the best you can.
He has a masteral units in public health.
Give it you all.
Kailangan natin nucleotide. Bakit? Kasi yung struktura ng DNA, nucleotide.
He's legend, no one can
Industrial and occupational medicine.
serve. Our love he deserves.
Traditional Chinese medicine.
I'm full of compassion. His determination,
Member of KBP.
my admiration. Challenges he had, daring, painful, and bad.
Member of Institute of Functional Medicine.
It's a mystery. Life is it's meant to be.
Okay, good evening everyone and good morning to those who are in Asia, and for the rest of the world, good day to you all. Today is a Monday in the US and Tuesday for us here in Manila, and it's for the Christmas countdown, it's 44 days to go. Okay, so today we'll have Dr. Arlie Imperio who would talk about vital role of amino acids. Today, by the way, we also have Dr. Mario who's with us. Okay, doctors, good morning.
Yes, good evening, America. Good morning, Asia. We look forward to a fruitful and effective way on how we can share our forever healthy products to all. And I will be focusing today, or will be talking in detail, the role of amino acids to our health and vitality. We had discussed this already in the past, but today we will be discussing it in detail. And I'm so happy that everybody is present, because this lecture is very important. The objective of our presentation today is to answer the question, how important are amino acids is to our life? Number two, if there is a food supplement that we should be taking, what should be the first one? Or what is the basic food supplement that everybody should be taking? If you are already taking food supplements, I would like to answer the question why you should add, let's say, IMUREGEN food supplementation when you are already taking food supplements. We will be answering that question now. If you haven't been taking food supplements and you are trying to decide which supplement you should take, I will be answering the question that you should be taking, let's say, IMUREGEN, and I will give you the reason why. So that's the goal of our lecture today. And for those who are here for the first time, just to introduce myself, I practice family medicine, but I have already retired from active practice. And I had masteral units in public health, about almost 40 units of public health. And with Dr. Mario, we are members of the Institute of Functional Medicine, which is a new field of specialty in medicine. And just to give you some background on my practice of public health, I was on radio for many years during the time of President Ramos, the president of the Philippines at that time. He himself wrote a memo that I be given radio time nationwide here in the Philippines at Radyo ng Bayan, now Radyo Pilipinas. That's why that qualified me to become a member of the KBP, Kapisanan ng mga Broadcaster ng Pilipinas. Before we proceed, we always make this disclaimer that this presentation is for private training, and it is not meant to teach us to diagnose, treat, or cure. If we have any medical condition, it is our duty to consult our physician, and health statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The focus is on amino acids. And amino acid is one of the major ingredients of IMUREGEN. That's why we have to study amino acids. And I would like you to take note that there are 20 amino acids. And amino acid is the building block of protein. So our body is basically made up of protein. And the components of the protein are amino acids. How many amino acids? 20. The amino acids are like the letters of our alphabet. We have 26 letters, right? And each letter of the alphabet is very important. Even the letters like letter Z or letter X, which are seldom used, they are still important because even only one letter that may be missing in the 26 letters of our alphabet, obviously there would be certain words we cannot create because the letter is absent. Let's say our keyboard is not working well. When you press some letters, it doesn't appear, then you cannot make the word that you desire. And words are the starting point of every sentence. And every sentence would make up the paragraph. And the paragraph will make up the chapter. And chapters will make a book. But this will not push through well if letters are absent. Okay, in our body, there is a code on how to create the body. And it uses 20, I may say, letters. And these are the 20 amino acids. So we now have here listed the complete 20 amino acids. So I suggest you take a picture of the screen. And when you have already a copy of our PowerPoint, you print it. So when you share IMUREGEN, you simply say, oh, look, at the label, it says amino acids. Oh, these are the 20 amino acids. In the US label, if Francis would have the chance to show us, in the US, they required that on the label itself, we print all the amino acids it contains. Wow, that's a very high type of requirement. But we complied, and that's why we have IMUREGEN available for the US market. Now, what I would like you to take note, look closely to the chart. All the amino acids are encircled, right? Encircled. But take note of the amino acids where the circle is broken circle. This is to emphasize that these are the essential amino acids. So what does the essential amino acid mean? It means that the body cannot, I repeat, cannot create the amino acids. All the other amino acids the body can create, so provided the basic ingredients are present. We call them non-essential, meaning the body creates them, so they are not essential. So essential means since the body cannot create it, the essential amino acids should come from outside source, not from the body, outside source, meaning we should get it from the diet, from nutrition. And take note, if only one amino acid is not present, like in my analogy of the 26 letters of the alphabet, there will be certain proteins that cannot be created. So the body will have a hard time because the DNA gave the code, the instruction. And then the RNA was created to copy the code. And then the RNA, as we will show later, goes out of the nucleus and into cytoplasm would require the necessary amino acids to create the protein. But what if the amino acids are not present? So the RNA would have a difficult time. He cannot create the protein as instructed by the DNA. So if even only one is not present, because we have to have the 20 amino acids, like in the alphabet, we have to have the 26 letters of the alphabet. So Take note of the broken circle. You count how many are they? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the question is, how many essential amino acids are there? The answer is 9. If we have the 9 essential amino acids, the body will create all the rest and we will have the 20. You get it? I will repeat. If we have the 9 essential amino acids taken dietarily, the body will create all the other amino acids, which is 20. And that will be used in protein synthesis and how to create the protein the body needs. Proteins like to fight the virus, to fight the bacteria, to fight the protozoan, fungus, as part of our immune response. We need proteins to create enzymes. We need proteins to enhance communication between cells. We need protein to build the organ, maintain the organ, practically everything. It's protein in nature. We call that the proteins, or even we call that the peptides, right? So the one that will do that is the amino acids. Remember, put this into your notebook. The amino acids are the building blocks of protein. It's like building a wall or our house where we put one brick after the other. The bricks are the amino acids, right? And we need 20. So I will repeat, if we have the 9 essential amino acids, the body will create all the rest. So we will have 20. But when you look at the IMUREGEN formula, it has listed 17 amino acids, including the 9 essential amino acids. But according to Francis, when he counted the amino acids present in the US label, wow, it's 20. So my point, dear friends, is look for a food supplement that has amino acids. Why? Because it's very important in protein synthesis. Unfortunately, when you look at the other food supplements, they don't have it. Their food supplement is good, but the basic should be it has to have the 20 amino acids because it's basic. Then you can add the other food supplements. So I'm now answering the question, what food supplement should we be taking primarily, and what is the requirement? And one of the requirements is that it should have the 20 amino acids. If currently you are already taking food supplements, check if it has amino acids. If none, then you have to add a food supplement that has the amino acids. So you get it, my dear friends? That's the purpose of this slide. Question, how many amino acids? 20. Where will I get the 20? The 11 is created by the body, but the 9 should be taken from dietary sources. So you can take it from food. And if you are not sure of the food that you took because you don't have a well-balanced meal, then your next option is to supplement. And be sure that your supplement has the 9 essential amino acids. It's simple, my dear friends. All you did is to read the label. We will now show in detail how important the amino acids is to our body. So this is a very important slide. I would like you just to get the main idea because we'll be discussing this already in the past quite frequently. On the left side, as a review, we discussed it previously. This is the copy of the 20 amino acids. What is the role? And you could look at the right side, you can see the chromosome. We have already shown that in the one-page presentation that the chromosome is inside the nucleus of every cell. So we illustrate the genome which came from the chromosome. So you can see it came from the chromosome. And the genome or the gene is an array of one DNA after the other. It was estimated that 6 or 8 feet long of the genome will contain 50 million DNA. Now, the DNA, as we have discussed previously, is the starting point. The DNA is the one that contains the code, the instruction for us to grow, develop, pediatric development, to build, maintain, repair the body, and finally, for survival. Therefore, on this basis, we say that our life starts and ends at the DNA level. So here is the starting point. You will notice at the lower portion, the DNA, which is double-stranded, unwinded. So you see it open up. We call that replication. So the starting point is DNA replication through the support or initiation of the RNA polymerase. That is an enzyme which will trigger when it passes through the strand to create the RNA. So you can now see the RNA transcript. The RNA is now being created during replication. And then if you have the time, if you get a picture of this image, you can see the complementation of the nitrogen bases, which we commonly refer to as nucleotide. So can you see the letters? Let's say above A and U. Actually, when it is closed, it's A and T, adenine thymine. But remember, when RNA is created, the thymine is uracil. That's why you can see it's AU, right? Then thymine, adenine, guanine, cytosine, adenine, uracil. You see, the code is now being copied. Copied from where? The DNA. The RNA is now being created. We call it the RNA transcript. It is copying the code from the DNA, one of the strands of the DNA. So can you now see, my dear friends, the importance of the nitrogen bases, which we call nucleotide? If there is an error at this point, it has to be corrected. At this point, it has to be corrected. Because if it's not corrected, the copying is also in error and everything will not be successful. That's why it's very important that at this point, the repair is being done. Okay? Can you see it, my dear friends? I'm so happy I was able to get a copy of this slide. And I would like to give recognition to the author who created this. But this well illustrates at this point the importance of the nucleotide, that it should be in the correct sequence because it will be copied. This is what we call transcription. It's like the secretary facing the boss, transcribing what the boss would say. The boss at this point is the DNA. The DNA said, okay, transcribe. Oh, this is the code, copy it. Because I have to create a protein, an immunoglobulin, to fight the virus that came into the body. You get it? It's specific. It's a code. It's complex. That's why the DNA was hidden inside the nucleus. It never goes out. What will go out is the RNA. That is how important the DNA is. My dear friends, if you understood my explanation, which I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, everything will just be easy. Oh, this is a very important slide. So notice I repeated the diagram on the right side. But I would like you to see the difference between the nucleus and the cytoplasm. Look at the left figure. This is the cell. Notice the big circle. Inside the cell is the nucleus. You get it? Okay? So you read. It's there, nucleus. And then the space between the nuclear membrane and the cell membrane is the cytoplasm. Oh, this is a very important distinction. And then look closely at the figure. The DNA is always inside the nucleus. You get it? And then we illustrated a while ago transcription, so you can now see it unwinded. That is DNA replication. And then when the RNA was created, and specifically we call it mRNA or messenger RNA. It's like the liaison officer. The boss gave the instruction. Okay, bring this documentation to them. That's the liaison officer. That's now the mRNA. Notice it goes out of the nucleus. So the nucleus has openings, right? And then later on, we will be discussing in detail the messenger RNA is outside the nucleus. Where is it? Inside the cytoplasm. So if we look at the cell as a factory, the nucleus is the headquarters. The factory site is the cytoplasm. So almost all food supplements are working in the cytoplasmic area, almost all. But look for a supplement that will support the nuclear organelles, and the DNA is one of them. Actually, there are more organelles inside, right? Let's say the nucleosome. But the focus now is the DNA. So notice God has so purposely designed that the DNA is well protected within the cell. It's not just within the cell, it is within the cell. That is in the nucleus. Never will it go out. It is well protected. It is hidden. And what will go out is the RNA. That is transcription. And the next step, which we call the central dogma of biology, is translation, as we will go along. But at this point, I would like that everybody clearly understands the difference between the nucleus and the cytoplasm. Okay, so it's the same story, my dear friends, but we will make it more simple. We are now familiar with the figure on the left. We now go to the right. The right is the enlargement of the figure of the left and more simplified. The orange figure or color, that's the cell. The violet color, that's the nucleus. So you can now see the space in yellow, that's the cytoplasm. In this slide, we can now see the starting point, the DNA. I will repeat, if I will ask you the question, where is the starting point of our life? It is in the DNA, because the DNA contains the code. And then look closely at the DNA. It's double-stranded and it's closed. But when that opens up, it gives permission to copy the code. That is transcription. So it has been transcribed as the messenger RNA. Take note, the RNA is single-stranded. So there are now two nucleic acids, DNA and RNA. What's the difference? The DNA contains the code, it's double-stranded. The RNA copies the code and it's single-stranded, okay? And then to simplify, the RNA went out of the nucleus. So in the cytoplasmic area, it now started working like a machine in the factory site. And that is now translation. And we will be showing that in detail. But at this point, this is now the two important steps in the central dogma of biology, which is DNA plus RNA. That's step number 2. And then finally to create the protein. Okay, so we are now completing the process. So we call this protein synthesis. Synthesis means how is protein created by the body. And the building block of the body we emphasized previously are the amino acids. So at the left side, you can now see the 3 major steps in the central dogma of life or biology. DNA, RNA, protein. But actually this contains 11 complex steps. And when Dr. Jose Oclarit, who is part of our medical team, gave a lecture, he discussed the 11. And I'm sure probably nobody understood it except Dr. Mario and I. And we find it so refreshing as a review. Because when we were studying physiology and biochemistry, this has been one of our topics. But Dr. Jose Oclarit made a well-organized, simplified version, but only doctors can understand. But at this point, the role of Dr. Mario and me is to simplify it further. This is the simplest outline on the central dogma of biology. And then, by the way, before I proceed, I would just like to give a recognition that this 2021, Dr. Jose Oclarit was notified by the Nobel Prize Committee that he was nominated in chemistry as one of the possible recipients. So that's how qualified our colleague in, let's say, medicine. Okay, on the right side, you can now see the same story, but it's now more detailed. It's now complete. There are 3 steps, DNA, RNA, protein, right? Okay, so look at it closely. On the left upper portion, you can see the DNA unwinded. We call that DNA replication. That is the first step. So obviously, if the code in the DNA is altered and not corrected, then all the rest will be problematic. That's why the DNA replication is the first step. We call that transcription, and the RNA was created. And then take note, the RNA contains now the copied nitrogen bases, right? And then it will be translated to protein. And then you will now see that the protein is a combination of amino acids. So you can see the letters of the amino acids at the upper portion on the word protein. H is for histidine, V is for valid, M I think would be for methionine. So the protein is created with what? With the amino acids. You can see it, right? Therefore, it's very important that we support the stability, the structure, and function of the DNA and RNA, right? Can you see it? And that's where the nucleotides come in, because the nucleotides, which are nitrogen bases, are part and parcel of the DNA and RNA. Therefore, it's very obvious that if there is lack of the nitrogen bases, which is guanine, cytosine, thymine, adenine, and uracil for RNA, then obviously everything will not proceed properly, right? And then to create the protein, it's a combination of amino acids. Therefore, that's where now the main topic of our lecture comes in. We are now establishing the vital role of amino acids. Okay, take note, if I will now advance my conclusion, what if there is no nucleotide? Therefore, the DNA and RNA cannot be created or maintained. What if there is no amino acid? Therefore, even though the DNA is perfect, the RNA is perfect, but if there is lack or absence of amino acids, obviously the protein cannot be created. Can you see it, my dear friends? That it has a vital role. Therefore, two major components are essential, nucleotide and amino acids. Therefore, look for a food supplement that has the nucleotides and the amino acids, because these two major components will support the central dogma of life, will support protein synthesis. If your food supplement does not have these basic ingredients, therefore it will not support the central dogma of life. It's very obvious. You get it? So if you are taking a food supplement and your answer to me is, I am already taking a food supplement, and my answer is, does it have nucleotide and amino acids? If none, then you should take a food supplement that has nucleotide and amino acids. If you are starting to take food supplements, okay, the starting point should be a food supplement that contains nucleotides and amino acids. So can you see the point, my dear friends? This is the substantiation of why we need a food supplement that has nucleotide and amino acids. Okay, so we are now about to end. We will now summarize everything. That's why in this diagram, I mentioned the central dogma of biology and protein synthesis. This now summarizes everything. So I suggest you take a picture of this and then get a copy of the PowerPoint, because this will now summarize everything. Look at the middle. You can see DNA, RNA, protein. That is the central dogma outlined in simplest form. And then you can see the two important steps, which is transcription and translation, right? On the left portion, it's just a review of what we just previously showed. That this is the cell. Inside the cell is the nucleus. And inside the nucleus, look closely, is the DNA, which are unwinded so that the RNA is copied and created. And then the RNA goes out of the nucleus into the cytoplasm, and in the cytoplasm attracted the transfer RNA, which contains the nucleotide. So notice, you can see that the transfer RNA is attaching. And when it attaches, notice there are 3 points of attachment. That's why one codon has 3 nucleotides. And then when it attaches, it has a small dot on top of it. But when they attach one after the other, they create the protein, which is a combination of the dots. That's now the amino acids being combined to create the proteins. Okay, so that's the figure on the left. We now go on the illustration on the right. Notice that there are 3 nucleotides to 1 amino acid. So can you now see, my dear friends, the intimate connection of nucleotides and amino acids? As a review, there are 20 amino acids. Okay, for every 3 nucleotides, 1 amino acid. So on the right portion, this is now the summary, double-stranded DNA. Notice it's 2, double. It unwinded. Notice it opened up. And through transcription, the RNA was copied as a single strand. And notice in that RNA, the nucleotides or the nitrogen bases are in one array after the other. This should be perfect. If there is a mismatch, okay, then there should be a repair. Okay? Okay, so that's the RNA. And then the RNA goes out of the nucleus. It's translated. Notice there is that's methionine, tyrosine, histidine, arginine, proline, okay, tyrosine. These are the amino acids. And take note, 1 amino acids, it connects to 3 nitrogen bases. That's why, obviously, my dear friends, the sequence of the nucleotides or the nitrogen bases should be perfect, or else it may not attract the corresponding amino acid. Or the single strand is perfect. But if there is no amino acid, what amino acid it can attract as instructed? That is during translation. And then when it's properly done, the ending is amino acid sequence of a protein. So you now have here methionine, tyrosine, histidine, arginine, proline, tyrosine, proline. That is the sequence as instructed by the DNA. So you can now see, my dear friends, that the starting point is the DNA. But what if the DNA is damaged? How can it proceed? That's why it's very important that the DNA stability is maintained. Number 2, that the DNA health is maintained. Number 3, that the DNA repair should be regular and enhanced, because it's the very important molecule. It is the starting point of everything. That is the central dogma of life. But let me emphasize at this point. You may have a perfect DNA. You may have a perfect RNA. But when there is no amino acid, because you remember the amino acids are 20 and there are 9 essential amino acids. Only 1 essential amino acids that is lacking, you can never create the 20. And you need 20 amino acids. That's why I'm so happy that finally there is a food supplement that contains the 9 essential amino acids, totaling 17, and it can create the 20 amino acids. Okay, and then we have now the nucleotides that obviously is part and parcel of the DNA RNA. Therefore, it can promote the DNA health. It can promote DNA stability, and it will support DNA repair. So these are the 3 important health messages as far as the DNA and RNA is concerned. And apparently, it was neglected. Before we say it was forgotten, but it was not forgotten because we studied this in medicine. But apparently, we failed to give due importance on these organelles or these molecules. And the good news is that we have it. And our goal is to understand it so that we will appreciate the value of nucleotide supplementation in our life. And it is our duty to share this good news to our loved ones and friends. So don't be afraid to share it to others. We have the basic science. If they don't agree, they don't understand, they do not want to know that not all food supplements are the same, it's their life. But it is our duty to take it ourselves. It's our duty to share it. So I have already said everything, my dear friends. All the rest is just to emphasize what we have discussed. So notice the role of transcription, translation, protein, and amino acids. So on the left side, we showed it a while ago. On the right side, it's the same story, only it is shown in a different perspective, but it's the same. 3 nucleotides, 1 type of amino acid. You get it? So on the left side of the right figure, you now have the double-stranded DNA. Notice the letters in between. These are the nitrogen bases, which we commonly refer to as nucleotide. Let's say you notice adenine paired to thymine, thymine, adenine, guanine, cytosine. Can you see it? These are the elements that should be found in a food supplement, and good news is now available. And then when it was copied, notice it's single-stranded, and it complements the nitrogen bases. Okay, and then notice for every 3 amino acids, for every 3 nucleotides, 1 amino acid. Okay, and then eventually it will create the combination of the amino acids. Okay. Okay, so it's the same story, my dear friends, but we look at it in more detail. So we now see the transfer RNA, which has 3 nucleotides that will attach to the messenger RNA to create the protein configuration. So notice the growing peptide chain on the right side. That is now the protein being created. And notice it is a combination of the different amino acids. So very obvious, my dear friends. If there is lack of amino acids, even though the DNA is perfect, even though the RNA is perfect, but if there is lack of amino acids, it cannot create the desired protein as instructed by the DNA, as needed by the body. That's the point. That's the most important point of our lecture today. That's why we should have to ensure that our food supplement contains the 9 essential amino acids, or the food that we take, the diet that we take, should have the 9 essential amino acids. When you take, let's say, a food supplement that has the standardized, let's say, ingredient of nucleotide, purified and standardized amino acids, wow, you can be sure that you're taking probably the best food supplement that is available. Okay, so this is simply a summary of everything. You don't bother if you cannot understand, but notice I will mention the keywords. On the upper left, you can see the nucleus and the cytoplasm, okay, where transcription took place. And then in the middle portion, there is now translation. And then the upper right, just to illustrate that when the DNA unwinded, the messenger RNA is created. But notice it is copying the nitrogen bases, which we commonly refer to as nucleotides, coming from the DNA. And then the pathway for gene expression. Gene is a combination of the DNA in array. Step number 1, DNA replication. Then through transcription, messenger RNA. And then messenger RNA is translated to protein. And then the final protein, we call it functional protein, meaning it will work as it has been designed. We call this post-translational modification. That's another complex step. But the point is, can you now see, my dear friends, the vital role of nucleotide? Can you now see, my dear friends, the vital role of amino acids? Those 2 important components must be present in protein synthesis. So how proteins are created or shaped, and this dictates function in the cell. So this is a very important point. When the protein is created, as we have just discussed in detail, this protein will dictate function. That's how important the created protein is. So as a review, okay, you know this already. First, we have the DNA. So look at the upper portion. And the nitrogen bases, which we call nucleotides, are present. It's double-stranded. And then through transcription, the RNA was created. Notice it has the complement copy of the DNA nitrogen bases, okay? And that is what we call transcription. Then it will be translated, okay, as protein. And you will notice the combination of protein. M is methionine, A is arginine, H is histidine, okay, and so forth. And then eventually the configuration. That's why notice in array, you see now the protein as convoluted. Those different configuration will dictate the function of the cell if it was properly created. And it will be properly created if the code in the DNA is perfect. And obviously, if the code in the DNA is perfect, the RNA will be perfect. And then if there is the corresponding amino acids to create the protein, because the amino acids are the building blocks of protein. And then when the protein is created, this will now say support the structure and function of every cell, tissue, organ of the body. That's why it's called the central dogma of biology. So if I may repeat, can you now see, my dear friends, the importance of nucleotides? Can you see, my dear friends, the importance of amino acids? Okay, this is now the final slide. But I have summarized everything. And I know at this point, if you join me right from the start, you can now understand what we are trying to talk about. On the left side is the central dogma of life. Okay, so the question is it possible for dietary supplements to support the central dogma of life? And the central dogma of life is on the left side. The starting point is the DNA. The RNA is created to create the protein. Okay, that's a central dogma of life. Then look at the right side. Our food supplements must therefore have the following ingredients. Dietary nucleotides is number one. And the official abbreviation is small d capitalized NT, dietary nucleotides. Why? Because nucleotides is part and parcel of the DNA and RNA. That's very obvious. And then two, the essential amino acids, and the official abbreviation is capitalized EAA. And the essential amino acids, right, is needed by the RNA during translation to create the protein. And 20 amino acids are required, and the official abbreviation is AA. So the obvious question is, what if there are no nucleotides? What if there are no amino acids? Therefore, look for a food supplement that has, number one, dietary nucleotides and all the amino acids. Therefore, this is the basic starting point of proper food supplementation. So what does that mean? If you are already taking many food supplements, and it's okay and it's good, what you have to check now is to see if the food supplements you are taking has, number one, dietary nucleotides, number two, has amino acids, the 20 amino acids. If you are not yet taking food supplement and are trying to decide what food supplement to take a food supplement that has dietary nucleotides and the essential amino acids, because this is the basic starting point of our life. So I wish and look forward that you understood the conclusions that I have emphasized. And the basis is basic science. Even though there is no research, it's basic science because it's the central dogma of life. But if you can find a food supplement that has dietary nucleotides, that has the essential amino acids, and it is backed by many research and the clinical study, wow, you have the best food supplement ever that you and I must take to support our life and health. Therefore, get in touch with the person who shared you this video, and I look forward that with this information that you got, you will now be motivated to take the desired, the necessary ingredients. And at this point, I would like to re-emphasize one good point, which Dr. Mario has mentioned in one of his lectures. And I took note of it because it's very correct. He said, everything is already created. Everything is already perfect. It's like building a house. The blueprint has already been approved by the city hall. Everything is already okay. The workers are already there, right? But what is needed are the ingredients that the workers will use are available. Okay, so that's a very important point. Now, I'm happy we have this slide because this also summarizes everything. On the left side, you have now the central dogma of life, right? On the right side, look for a food supplement that has cytosine, guanine, thymine, uracil, right? All you need to do is to read. All you need to do is to check, right? If you can find a food supplement that has cytosine, guanine, thymine, uracil, wow, you are in for a treat. And then number two, look at the ingredients of the food supplement. Does it have the 20 amino acids? If it has, wow, you're already on your way. Now, if we add peptides, oligopeptides, and full-baked rice minerals, wow, you made it almost perfect. Actually, in my opinion, the peptides, oligopeptides, is the secret sauce of IMUREGEN. So even though you have another food supplement that they also added the nucleotides, but they do not have the secret sauce, the peptides and oligopeptides, which was extracted from bovine tissue extract. Wow. That's why the formula of IMUREGEN cannot be copied even up to this point. Dr. Alice Machela, one of the top immunologists in Czech Republic, which Dr. Mario and I happened to meet during their presentation in Manila about, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. He said that they consider IMUREGEN as the gold standard in nucleotide supplementation, if not for all food supplements. Why? Because it was patented in 1983. That's more than 30 years ago. And until now, he said, it's the same formula, exactly the same formula. That's why they consider it the gold standard. And they released several new journals on the usefulness to our body, IMUREGEN. All you need to do is to search it in Google if you like. But I would like to make a disclaimer at this point. IMUREGEN is a food supplement. It's food. It's never a medicine or a drug. And never should you use it to replace medicines or drug that your doctor may prescribe. If you have any medical condition, go to your doctor, follow your doctor. And from my point of view, you just simply add this as food because it is approved as food. And it is food. All of these are raw ingredients needed by the body. This is the approved, let's say, labeling in America, right? And notice at the supplement facts, you can now see the nucleotides, adenosine, inosine, uridine, right? These are the biochemical names of the guanosine, right? Cytidine. And then all the rest are the amino acids, right? And it has listed the 9 amino acids. So according to Francis, he counted the amino acids, it's 20. So it's complete. So if I may read some of them, proline, notice 1.63 microgram. Glutamine, 1.460 microgram. Leucine, 1.259. You get it? Valine. Even the amount in microgram is listed. So even though, since they now gave the formula, even though another will follow the formula, they do not have the secret sauce that makes it more effective and powerful. That is what Dr. Alice Machela and Clara Kovalkova discussed, the 118 oligopeptides. The important thing here is that we have the essential, and then we have all the rest. And I can see from the checks back from the Lord, then why did they put in the US? Well, it's the requirement of the US. But here in the Philippines and in Europe, they simply said amino acids and nucleotide. But if you will check in detail what they are as required by the US requirement, so here it is. It's complete. It's the same formula. Complex dietary nucleotides and amino acid. You look at the left. In the Philippines and in Europe, they simply made this statement. And on the right, because it was required, what are they? It's now here, it's listed. You see, very rare, and I haven't seen yet any other food supplement that has this listing as complete as this. So I'm so happy we have it, okay? It's the same formula, only per country, they might have different requirements. Like for example, in Europe, in the Philippines, the usual dosage is 5 ml a day. In the US, because they felt it's powerful enough, they said 3 ml will do. Okay. in Europe and in the Philippines, it can be given at 1 year of age. But US, per the requirement, they are more conservative. They will say it should be at 4 years old and above. But it's the same story. It's food. Only how it will be applied may vary per requirement per country. The bottom line here is that we take it as our dietary food support to have a better, let's say, health or life